Greetings. Okay. So before I start with the reading today, which is we're going to get through three of the sections in the techniques and exercises for the fifth hub. I've just been finding that like some of this stuff feels a little bit like super prescriptive, so I'm not that eager to read it. Like when I'm getting into it, it's like feels a lot closer to like business coaching. And so I've just been finding that I'm not that into it. So my solution is I'm going to read three of them today. But before I get started, there's something I want to talk about, which is the impact of feeling tired, hungry, um, getting sick, getting frustrated, getting activated. For me right now, I just, finishing my like menstrual cycle, that it's like that one of the things in terms of adaptations, and when we're talking about like the shrinking and inflating, how they tend to shift us into like our predominant um like familiar pattern in a hub, and even shifting into shadows, like in safety, and steering us into um let's see let's see. Yeah, I don't actually, I'm not going to talk about it like so philosophically. I'm just going to say that one of the things that can really like can take us off course in this work is that it's like if we get overwhelmed by something, and it can be something really simple that is connected to a like an activation, like for some people with money, maybe it's getting an unexpected bill. For some people with like guilt and shame, it can be like being embarrassed, or um just like doing something that is associated with, be like morality, and but even physically, like just getting worn out, getting hungry, like physicality plays a big role in this, which is like being tired, being overwhelmed, being overworked, being let's see. I mean, like, I think the thing, like, I think that probably gets the point, which is that what happens in these states is that they tend to steer us back into old patterning, because it's the lowest energy state to maintain, and also the notions of what keep us safe will resurge. So the reason I bring this up is like a word of encouragement, I guess, more than anything, which is that if you're feeling like if you feel this way and you feel discouraged by it, if you feel like in this process, like when these periods of time happen, and they will. It's not like if it's when. And feeling like, wow, that's a total like backslide. Or, I thought I had this, kind of like I thought I sort of understood this, and I'm like really back in it. For me, it was historically was about the kind of work I did. I would really be like, yeah, I really don't love this stuff, but it was just like I would slide back into making major life changes about my career when I was feeling, yeah, overwhelmed. But even just recently for me, in the last few days, where I'm like I've had my menstrual cycle, that it just takes the energy down. It's like there's more like physical discomfort, there's lower energy, and so honestly, the back to like back to the whole notion of how we work with ourselves, and like have our relationship with ourselves, is to be able to just be aware that it's happening. It really is like all it really takes is like just being aware that it's happening, and Yeah, I'm just trying to think about, because I will say that one of the things about like the tangle, as far as like what we're talking about, it's like the reflex that's formed through based off of like early experiences, and circumstances, and then the beliefs that are associated with them that form the notion of reality. And that reality gets projected into the world, and the world responds accordingly. And it tightens the notion of like the absoluteness of the reflexes, that the loosening of it has almost an ecstatic effect in many ways. Sometimes it can be disorienting, but ecstatic, because it's like without even full being able to like fully comprehend, it's being able to see what's possible in this like very kind of um yeah, I would say it's like it's more of a sense of like, oh my gosh, like um and so when we get tired or overwhelmed, and we find ourselves in what feels like a retightening, um or an invalidation of the loosening of the tangle, where it's like, see, no, this is just how it always is. It's like, yep, you can sort of go into like this sort of, you know, this alternative world. But ultimately, it always winds up, the truth always winds up being that life is sort of whatever, like fill in the kind of, the tangle, fill in the tangle. It's like, it turns out this is the truth. But realizing like that's the most well-worn groove, and that it's energetically, like completely default. So, when we're building these capacities, especially in the early days, it takes more energy to actually pay attention to this, do the work, do the practices, do the contemplation, and like that effort, and it's like you get the access to the sensation of it, the feeling, the realization, whatever, and even you get a couple, revolutions within the, tangle, so to speak, where it's like you're like, whoa, okay, like this is malleable. But then, you get tired, you get sick, you get sad. Sad is another one. Frustrated, overwhelmed, whatever. Anything that like takes down, the operating budget for energy. And then it's just there's kind of the natural default back into the patterning that takes no energy to uphold, no active energy. It's absorbing energy, but it doesn't take active energy to do it. It does absorb energy. So I bring this up because I think it's important, and it's an important note. It's important. I want to bring it up because it's something that like I like sharing this stuff about how I'm practicing. I never had teachers that would openly say like, "Oh yeah, this is part of my practice right now," which is that it's like, "Oh, I see this arising," which is kind of like old patterning. But I mean, the where I'm at in my practice, I see it for what it is, and it isn't as disruptive. I don't love it. I don't love like, it's not as nice as like the feelings of sort of like this, like the alternative. But when I don't have the energy for it, it's like I'm some of the old, like low, like stuff that's sort of just like, well, I'll call it like passive. I don't know. And yeah, but the thing is like, if I like zoom out a little bit and I just watch it without trying to change it, with like just kind of interest and presence, and like um in this type of exploration of seeing what it is without judging it and being like, see, you didn't learn anything, or see that, like that kind of thing, where it's just like, oh, this is a thing. There's an ebb and flow in the practice. And so like it's like that's one of the things where it's like the enriching of it, where it's like, yep, this is like the ability to be present in all states of it, because like everything, it's easier when it's like, wow, the tangle is like untangling, and it's like that kind of like freedom. It's like that's it. But they're just yeah. And, and I think the thing is with the ebb and flow of this is that I think most people can relate to this in, as it really as it with respect to time in different ways. Like, there are people that will have a practice and then they step away for it for years and then come back to it. So this is a pattern, like the ebb and flow in this is something that can be minutes, days, months, years, and like it is what it is. The thing is, on one hand, I would say that the thing about time is that it's like, look, it'll always be here for you. Like, the practice will always be here for you. But the caveat I would add to that is these adaptations that we're talking about as feeling safer, even though it's kind of like, you know, let's see, maybe I'm going to talk a little bit more to that. But the adaptations and these states of this kind of like tangle or hairball that I used to call it, people didn't like that, um, is is that the more we practice it, the more it feels real. So that's the precaution that I would add to this, is that it's like and I don't mean this as like a guilting feature, because I realize this is like one of those things like beware, but it's like the longer, the tangle, the more we tighten it with every validation, the more and more and more it becomes dense. And so it's just like something to consider, I mean, there's very like real reasons that people back out. I think one of the reasons actually just has to do with misunderstanding what's happening when in a recoil, like so it's kind of like, oh, see, yeah, that was just like a little vacation from reality, um where and that like that kind of thing where it's like, and then the adaptations will like really kind of like run like a really big play, typically, if they're left without being like under like, okay, yeah, I'm a little scattered in this, but it's a really good point. It's really worth continuing with. um is that they like run a really strong play, and that it's like, see, this is like reality, and what will happen is that it'll be like, okay, well, this is just what I have to do, and then like doing that for another year or two, and then realizing like it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually not it, and then going back to it. And one I think more like common place this happens is with people with yoga. And this happens a little, I think this winds up being a little bit more on the subconscious layer, where it's like the expanding opens things up that folks aren't really ready to face. So it happens like a little bit beneath the conscious layer. And so there's sort of where people say, I don't know why I stopped. It always felt so good. And there isn't like a strong memory of the thing that didn't feel good, which is like what happens. This all, any somatic practice like yoga will, begin to surface. Yeah, it will begin to surface things. And yeah, so there's that. So yeah, so that's like, I guess this is worth talking about, because it's like it can save a lot of time being in the tangle, if to just be able to kind of like ride it out a bit, instead of, be able to ride it out a bit, and even use tools to manage, like manage the depths of feelings, like using new tools, like using tapping, using the physical practices, using anything, like using breathing, the techniques and exercises, using grounding, using time in nature, using new tools to work with the challenges that just I don't the challenges, I'm not even gonna put it that way, just dealing with, like, a lower energy, like, recoil into old patterning, Just anything that's like, "Yep, turns out this is that was just, like that's that was just a vacation from reality." Um, just being cautious, like, I just wanna throw a flag of caution around that because yeah. Because it's like it's a riptide that just takes back, and it's kind of like a good thing to remember is to think like, "Well, what was it that had me drawn towards this? What has had me drawn towards these practices of trying to like figure this out?" And by this, I just mean that like it doesn't feel right, the tangle of like the reflex to belief to reality notion, as prescribed by early experiences. And so go back to the sort of like what, like going back to, what initiated the journey to begin with, and realize it's like that's going to come back. It's going to come back. So, anyway, okay, so I have like a lot of reading to do here because I just want to get through it. This is I haven't read I just read the headers and kind of glanced a little bit through these, but I just know that, like, I just had this feeling of being like, which I spoke to a little bit earlier. So I'm gonna start reading. We'll see what comes up. We'll see what comes up. But there was something else that was like I wanted to say about I don't know, it's not gonna make it, or maybe it'll come up in this. Okay, so um, this is my grown-up bangs. I need to get my bangs re-trimmed. Oof, I'm looking a little verklempt. I'm gonna shift things around a little bit here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, just stay with yourself, Just stay with yourself. Hmm. Okay, so listening and validation. This swoop is sort of funny. Hopefully, it's not too annoying to look at. So active listening involves engaging in a conversation without taking it over. So don't offer advice unless specifically asked for it. This is particularly difficult if you feel that you add value by providing solutions. So instead, consider your value is giving people the space to think aloud and to do their processing while you support and validate them. Satisfying the reflex to participate by asking questions that help the speaker think and show engagement with body language, such as nodding and turning your body in the speaker's direction. One hack for better listening is to ask questions that interest you. If you don't care to hear the answers to canned interview questions like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Ask questions that arise spontaneously, such as, like, what is the most interesting thing to happen with a customer this week? See, this has like this like very like businessy thing. I must have been like advising when I was writing this. Why does this look so shiny right now? Look really shiny. I want to like adjust things a little bit more. So weird. Yeah. I'm not sure why that is. It's kind of distracting, honestly. Like look at that. It's like all right. Yeah. So one of the things I think that I want to bring up in this, and I kind of want to try to get through this as fast as possible, so I'm going to try not to give too much commentary here, is One of the things about, like if yeah, it's like I'm not sure if it's, like, from coffee or whatever, but so what was I gonna say? Um Okay, so when we are overwhelmed by a thought or some, or a lot of times what happens is we're stuck in kind of like the first aspect of it. So we like repeat, like I can't believe, what, like, and it's the same thing over and over. And one of the things with like journaling and also being heard and allowed to process things is that we can't repeat the same sentence over and over. It like evolves and begins to process. So one of the things about either of these is that quality, is that we're allowing the thinking to actually gain yardage instead of being stuck. It's almost like there's something weird where the mind just kind of keeps it in the first sentence of the first paragraph. And it's like, yeah, I can't, well, in the reaction to it. And then until it has space to like continue walking, it just stays on a treadmill. And so we want to like start walking. And this is one of the things that with like creating space for a person to speak is that you're actually like supporting that, like where it's like, all right, like you're not like walking or like walking on the treadmill while I talk to you. So, yeah. Okay, so, well, listening, encouraging sharing with statements like, "Yes, I hear you and I understand. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that." Um, and even like, "Is there anything more you want to I need to stop spoiler alerting this. It comes up eventually. So, if you're feeling courageous, try to paraphrase what you heard with what I hear you saying is, and then ask, "Did I miss or misunderstand anything?" That's one of my favorite things to say I will say in business is to say, "Did I miss or misunderstand anything?" Um, if you have the capacity, hold space for people to process and have their feelings without interruption. It can be uncomfortable, but ultimately, most people tend to release negative emotions and arrive at a neutral or positive place if they can talk through them. Similar to writing down a cycling thought, people need to ground the issue or concern, and work it through in the space of a page or in the space created within a conversation. Spoiler alert. Suppose you interrupt with a well meaning, positive perspective. You may be serving your own need to keep people positive, which can be a sign of needing a discharge of your own if taking on someone else's intense emotions can take you past your current capacity. That's also, I mean, this is something, back to like the boundaries that we create and the connection of this hub with our emotional capacity is that it can be a subconscious protection around being present for somebody's really strong emotions. And like someone's strong emotions, if we don't allow ourselves to feel them, can be really hard to watch because it feels unfair that they get to feel them, or that it really overwhelms us and we need to kind of like cut off the voltage. Yeah. And something else I want to bring in here that's not included is that, a lot of times the voltage that we're talking about is related to, so-called like negative feelings, but there's also the thing about positive feelings and how much like capacity we have for being around joy and happiness and people's like excitement, and just noticing like how great, how like our relative strength in that ability. So boundary awareness is essential for listening. If you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, tell the person, this is really important stuff you're saying, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to talk about this right now. Helping someone release frustration isn't your responsibility, especially if doing it overwhelms and exhausts you. This is very important, and it's really hard initially to um, if you're in the habit of believing like as soon as somebody has strong emotions around you that like it's this kind of opportunity for intimacy, or they're trusting you with something, or it's your responsibility. It's like finding, somebody, who's just had an accident. Like it's like, oh, I have to like help you kind of thing. Um, that like this is something, it's a really important part about like protecting ourselves, is like understanding our relative responsibility for somebody else's strong emotions, and whether you're in the position to be able to help process them. So um this can be tough. This can be a tough one and requires some practice. People who have previously benefited from overstepping boundaries will be the most offended when they're enforced. And also, we can be afraid that if we say this, then the person's never going to come to us again, and all this kind of stuff, which is like honestly kind of part of what you're trying to do, is make it that they really respect, like that you're not an easy person to go to for an offloading. Like it's actually like a benefit. It doesn't feel like it at first. It feels like, oh wow, this person is in a vulnerable state and they're coming to me. Um, Whereas it's like, well, they're coming to me, and there's also, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna see if this comes up, but there's also one of the things, which is like if you are associated with a huge offloading for, it's very common, is that the honor of holding like someone's discharge of strong emotions and anger is that you've seen them in a state that they want to kind of like distance themselves from, and you can become associated with that. So another reward for being someone who who's like yeah, another reward, like, so, just being aware of whether it's something that you can do comfortably or not, if that or that you can do, that you have the capacity for. Um, if people are offended by the suggestion of journaling or seeking therapy, keep in mind that they may prefer talking to you because it's easier for them. This is not a privilege for you, regardless of how it may be positioned. You may also notice that when people target you for their need to vent, the relationship can become limited to this type of interaction. So, yeah. Yeah, and there really and truly are people, I can speak personally, who do not like me because of this. Um, yeah, there's one person, and I won't give the specifics, but I'll amalgam this because they're not alone, is that, who wanna complain to me when I don't think it's really appropriate, um, and that, like, by drawing the line with them, that they'll come up with some other way to, like, vilify the boundary creation, and, I find, like, I really do find, especially with women, this is really loaded, I understand, but professionally, like, the awareness around venting that relates to dealing with environments that are, like, either sexist or misogynist, and there's kind of an odd thing that happens that I've found as an executive, where it's like the like, wanting to complain and come and, like, vent in a way that's very, like, I don't think is, like, that constructive, and it's not useful for my time, and in a lot of times not really appropriate for, that the lack of willingness to do that, and the statement of saying, like, "Look, I'll either help you, like, come up with a solution with this, uh, one in a number of ways, but, like, just having this conversation." What I've found, and this is not isolated, is that the person that they want to complain to you about, there's some kind of weird trauma thing where they will actually wind up feeling like having an allegiance to that person. I don't know how to describe it. It happens a lot where, the dynamic is that, that I've experienced is that they wanna complain about the mistreatment of, a peer executive of mine, and then they ultimately go and work for that person in another company or, like, return to working for them again, and that they have some kind of, like, kind of thing about me not willing to listen to them complain about the person. I don't know how that gets, reorganized and rescrambled. Uh, you know, I'm sure it's an elaborate calculus. Or maybe simple. It just is. Yeah, I wish I could say it's like, "Oh, it doesn't happen a lot." It happens a lot. It happens a lot. And that I mean, I think guess one of the points of that is, like, it very much comes back to what the kind of the parinama of it all, which is that, if everything that we're doing is about sort of like, the outside job, this stuff, it's like teaching and mentoring and lifting people up. If that's about what it does for you, it's like there's just this thing where it's like my my relationship to doing the best I have available in whatever state that is for other people that I'm teaching, developing, mentoring, working for me. I mean, whatever is available. It has, for some people it hasn't been great. For other people, it's been extraordinary. I mean, there's just, there's also just sort of matchups there that it really the expectation that 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 it's like for you or that there's gonna be gratitude that's, like, proportionate, whatever is not a good reason to, like, wanna help people. It really for me, it's just that I'm doing right, by others in the best way possible that I have access to the time, you know? I mean, that's, like it's not that exciting, or maybe it is, I don't know. This is like maybe it is. Alright, so speaking okay, so I've learned from a career in sales that an effective way to get someone interested in you is to listen to them long enough that they think you have something to say about them. It's true. It's really funny. Okay, I'm gonna yeah. So, you've probably heard the joke about this. Someone who has been talking nonstop says, "Well, enough about me. What do you think about me?" Ha ha ha. If you do if you do have something to say, and if you followed the above steps, now is your time. Oh, yeah, these were the steps in the previous section, the bullets, the ASMR'd. Um, now okay, so if you've listened, blah, 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 now think of people who only occasionally speak in meetings, and when they do, everyone stops and listens, and they get the full attention of the room. Usually, the only thing anyone can remember from the discussion is strong silence, comment, or statement. There's a reward for active listening and setting boundaries, being listened to when you speak. When it's your time to speak, you will have attention, and the vacuum formed by your silence and awareness will amplify anything you say or ask for. If you need some time to be heard and don't receive it, this is a good indication that you need to create a boundary. There are cases in which remaining silent may feel frustrating, but that ultimately can be the stronger position. If you must fight for a chance to speak in a conversation, it's unlikely the other person will be listening to you when you do. Exceptions to this are if there is an audience, like at a debate or meeting. However, keep in mind that some folks may listen just to collect what you say and use it against you. When used effectively, silence is a powerful tool. Now, yeah, okay, this is I think one of the things about needing to speak and be heard is the hunger of it. The hunger of it. And tracing the root back to what is like kind of the baby bird that is like that like the baby bird of it. It's like the like that hunger to be heard and the innocence of it. You know, there's that in there. The hunger to be seen, to be delighted in, to be respected, to have there just be interest in what you have to say. You know, that's just a whole thing. I think one of the things that is in these sections that I'm finding just in reading them is there's something in them that, and I think this is why I wasn't that excited about reading them, so I'm reading them all in one swoop, is that it's sort of like vestigial a bit to me, like some of the stuff, it's like how it feels to me. I don't know how it feels to a reader, but that it's like it really speaks to a part of myself that, and like, I don't know, it kind of speaks to a skill set that is very practical, but I don't know, just doesn't, I'm not feeling it right now. So elevator pitch. I love where we're going though next, which is like voice, tone, pitch. This stuff is really fun. So after this, yeah, after this drag. So the elevator pitch. So, okay. So, no matter who you are or what you do in life, explaining who you are succinctly is an important skill. Not only does it help you figure out who you are, but also helps you effectively frame and shift conversations so they're more enjoyable for everyone involved. The point is to be brief, be bright, and move the conversation forward. In chapter 12, the fifth hub descending elevator pitch exercise gets more deeply than I do here. Goes more deeply than I do here. So you have that to look forward to. Um, where did it go? For conversation and introductions such as, "Hi, I'm Katie. What is your name?" can be replaced with, "Hi, I'm writing a book about transformation. My name is Katie. What's yours?" It may seem awkward, but you're extending a conversational lifeline to the person and doing some work to invest in a conversation you're interested in having. So choose a personal descriptor that opens possible doors of opportunity and for talking about a topic that interests you. Sometimes conversations can feel like fumbles, and the small talk can be polite but not particularly engaging or memorable. Offering a descriptor gives people something to hook into for a conversation. So just a reminder, it's like, "Hi, I'm Katie. What's your name?" Is like, you know, it's like, "Hi, I'm Katie, and you are," like that. It's like, that's not much that can happen there. But if you're saying like, "Hey, so I'm writing a book about transformation. My name's Katie. Like, what's yours?" Like, I get that there's a little bit of awkwardness to this, but in like in the types of like cocktail chatter, you know, it's kind like people may, you know, like take it if you will. I just it like to me one of the things about, you know, when you think about how awkward or just how labored some interactions can be, it's like there's stuff we can do to actually like make it better and more interesting. So use probing questions that begin with what and how. Asking questions that start with why, when, where, or who can make a person feel interrogated. Let's see, for example, like what's the best way for somebody, or what's the best way for someone to get to know you? Or what's your favorite place in the entire world? Do you have any nicknames? What do you think every visitor of your city town absolutely has to do or try? And when people finish talking, encourage them to say more if you want to. So, like, I'd love to know more about that. Like, tell me more. Please tell me more. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think one of the things about those last 3 is that they're a little, like, they really like, I think one of the things they feel like is they feel like it's kinda like there's this sort of thing, like, they feel like the type of stuff that I did, like, the kinda some of the conversational stuff from earlier in my career. I don't know, it just feels kinda I don't know. I don't know if anybody like, I'm interested what, like, it just doesn't have, like, I don't know, just, I can't put my finger on it. I think that's exactly it. It's just it feels, like, a little dated to me in terms of stuff that has, like, kinda, like, juice and energy around it. So, I'm looking forward. I think where we're going now is gonna be a little bit more energizing. Also, I'm gonna be, like, probably a bit more energized. I can even feel right now the kind of sense of, like, being lower energy, and the pull that has for me towards, like, old feelings about what it means to feel this way. So, just, like, watching that and experiencing it, um, it's kinda good to talk about it a little bit here today. So, anyway, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for coming along, and, yeah, I will see you next time. Bye for now.